Suneera Madhani. Suneera Madhani.
Without much further ado, I'd like to welcome Suneera.
Hi, I'm Suneera Madhani, a mom of two, daughter of an immigrant, and an unlikely entrepreneur who built a billion-dollar business. Yes, billion. Now I'm doing it again and building my second unicorn, Worth. Shockingly, less than 2% of female founders ever reach 1 million in revenue, and I'm on a mission to change that. At CEO School, we mentor thousands of women to help them level up in business and in life. We believe that you deserve to have it all because honestly, nothing bad happens when women make more money. Grab a seat because class is officially in session. Welcome to CEO School. Hi everyone, welcome back to the CEO School podcast. I'm your host, Suneera Madhani, and today I am in sunny LA. It is my birthday week, so when you're gonna get this episode, it'll be a few weeks past, but I have to share it because it's my birthday. I'm in LA, and I'm having just the most incredible time connecting with fellow podcasters, fellow entrepreneurs, and today I was on one of the most incredible shows that I've been listening to for such a long time. I am with Lori Harder, the founder of Glossy, the founder of Earn Your Happy podcast with over 65 million downloads. We are here. We just finished recording my podcast, and I invited her to our show so we could turn the table, get to hear her story, but I'm so excited for you to get to know her. You're going to love Lori just as much as I do. I mean, all the accolades from being a best-selling author of A Tribe Called Bliss. She is a just incredible speaker. She speaks on every stage. She hosts the most incredible events, which I cannot go to. I'm like, I haven't gone to that I'm dying to go to. She's also a fitness world champion. All the things, has also launched an incredible brand that I actually have been drinking all morning called Glossy. And so I'm just so excited to have you. Lori, welcome to the CEO School podcast.
I'm so excited to be on the podcast, especially after I just got to talk to you for an hour. So now we're really getting into the meat.
We're really getting into it. I felt like I had so many questions for you while we were interviewing each other.
I'm the same way. I'm like, can we just talk back and forth?
Maybe next time we just do that. We'll just do one show.
We'll do conversation.
Two airs on one show. Okay, I'm going to put this down. Let's get to know your story. Lori, you have one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard. I'd love for you to take us back as early as you want to take us. I want to hear the younger Lori, where she was and how she's got to where she is today.
I love going back there because it is really early, guys. I'm going to take you back to like 8 years old, literally, because what I was hearing through some of your story is a lot of the things that we do now and the reasons we're so passionate is because something that we really struggled with as a little kid, or something that we had to overcome with our family, or something that we had to overcome in our life early on. And it becomes like these pillars and these themes that sometimes we don't even realize we're interjecting into our business, or we don't realize like why something's so important to us. So as people listen, like if they can just like try to find that theme in their life, and maybe even the realization of something that they started in their business of why it's so important. So I'm from a really small town in Upper Michigan, and most people don't even know that there is an upper part to Michigan that's not attached to Lower Michigan. And most people have never gone there because it is really, it's like, just billions of trees. That's about it. And lots of animals. And so
sounds really nice.
Yeah, it's stunning. It's beautiful, but it's super isolated. Okay. So being raised in a small town and then also being raised in a more restrictive religion kind of takes the group of people that you are with and makes it very small and makes you only kind of see one way of being. So in my particular congregation that I grew up in, it actually had about 114. I remember that was the number that was kind of always the amount of people that were in our congregation. And we weren't allowed to associate with anyone outside of the congregation. So growing up from, like 0 until I ended up leaving that area at 16 and then ultimately leaving the religion at 18, these were the only people,
114 people
that I hung out with, that I knew that, you grow up with. And so you can only be what you see. You can't be what you don't see. So for me, the only real access to the outside world or conversations was TV, like literally. So I would get,
So you didn't travel?
Didn't really travel. We did one travel like to California for a week and then one to Florida for a week. Like that was pretty much the extent of my travel through pretty much my entire life. Like we do some local to maybe, 6 hours away or something like that. But I didn't know really what was out in the world whatsoever. So I was also homeschooled through high school. So what I essentially did growing up was I went door to door. Like I knocked on doors all the time and would ask people if they wanted to be a part of the religion or wanted to learn about the Bible. And the mass amount of rejection that you get just through that, I had no idea how resilient I was becoming because
that's so hard as a child too.
I had a 0% recruitment rate. So, so when you think of
and
that.
you had to do it every day. And that's what you did every day, door to door, and just got
weekends, sometimes every day. Yes. So I was like, okay, cool. Which I didn't realize it was building up kind of this tolerance of like, I get it. Like, we're good. You don't have to yell at me. Or sometimes there'd be guys who were like, I'm going to go get my shotgun. And we're like, okay, yeah, we're fine. Cause I'm from the Northwoods.
Yeah.
Like that was just normal to be threatened with a shotgun. We're like, you're fine. Like you don't need to go do your thing and show off or whatever you think you're about to do right now. And so
that is nuts. Okay. So and I can think of I actually can't even imagine it, but I'm picturing it in my head right now. And so then you leave, or then you decide that you're going to leave.
Yep. And so that process is a whole thing. So which
is like the complete opposite of how I grew up. And that's what we were talking about.
Yes,
wow.
Totally. So, on the podcast with you, we had talked about, you had kind of felt like you had a safety net because you had this family who loved you and believed in you and would speak life into you. Now, I do want to say my family had a ton of love. We had I have a lot of good memories of we'd always have dance parties after dinner. There was a lot of love, a lot of hugs from my dad, such great things. And he was always trying to provide. But there wasn't a lot of belief, and it wasn't actually a great thing to build that belief in people, because going to college and trying to make money was actually frowned upon. It was a negative thing. Wow. Because your whole life, the goal was to just get enough money to go door to door and make that the thing that you do. And so it's there were a lot of people who were janitors or worked part-time, because all of the other time during the day would be to go out and service. And there were definitely people who had normal jobs, but it was
about
the
psyche. That was the mindset.
That was the mindset. And it's the more it was about treasures in heaven, right? So the more that you did in the religion, the more you got praised. So for me as a teenager, when I started to feel this weird little emotion that I didn't understand, because Lord knows I was not going to tell anybody that I was having second thoughts about the religion or my life's purpose. And so as a teenager, I was starting to be these feelings of, oh my God, I'm meant to do something more. I don't know what that is, but I know it's big, and I know it is not going to be accepted in this arena. And so for me, I started watching fitness competitions on TV, and I don't know, and gymnastics too. I was just, anytime there was a gymnast on or fitness or dancing, everything stopped. I would just sit, cross-legged, and it would be all I could think about. And I would get this feeling of almost when you get so excited, you're levitating, that feeling I have to do that thing. And so I didn't know what that meant, but it was just, this is what I want to do. Also, a big detail is we were a really overweight family. We really struggled with our weight. And as a kid, I remember always being told it was our genetics. And it was well, you can't do anything about it. And we would diet and try to diet, and the weight would always go back on. And it was, this is how we are.
This was your cycle as a child too.
Yes, this is how we are. Oh. These are our genetics. You might as well just give up now, because you're always going to be overweight. And so I remember one time I was sitting with my aunts, and there were 5 of them at a table. And I said something, I don't know, about fitness or wanting to be healthy or something. And they're like, well, you can forget about it because you're going to be fat like us. It's just, it's who we are. And they actually said their last name. They're like, it's the Baker way. And something in my body at that moment, maybe you've had this experience, probably especially because you're in fintech. But something in my body rejected that statement. I was like, that's for you.
Nice.
Like it was like this wall that came up
Good for
emotionally. It was like,
you.
that's for you. That's not for me. And so at a really young age, I started going and reading fitness magazines. And whenever my mom would go to the grocery store, if I was with her or not, I'd be like, grab me a fitness magazine, like bring anything home, because I wanted to learn. And so I had the realization from reading those magazines that it wasn't our genetics, because I'm like, hold on. So they're eating this way, they're moving this way, and they're thinking this way. And that way is 100% different than the way that we're doing things. Yeah. So there's always an option that you are not doing, that you are not yet doing, that could produce a completely different result. So I put together at a super young age that these actions were creating the results. And I was like, nope, these people are doing this and we're all doing this, and I'm going to do the other thing.
I am so fascinated because I'm so proud of you. Like, what an incredible young woman you were to recognize. I don't even know how do you, like, when you look back, like, what was it that rejected it? Like, I'm so glad that was that you chose the path. Yeah. That is so interesting that, I don't know, maybe some people are just made different. Maybe you're just made different. You knew you wanted more.
I think part of it was, pain is one of the biggest motivators for people, right? It's pain or pleasure. And I actually think pain in my entire, from 30 down, I was much more motivated by pain because I was around it all the time. Like I was seeing it it makes me kind of emotional, like so much anxiety, so much depression, so much religious fear that I just remember in my house, like, even though there was a lot of love, there was like so much like fear, pain, and like anxiety. And I just wanted to get out from under that. And as much as I love my parents, I was like, this is like literally suffocating me between like the family and the religion. I couldn't breathe. So when I turned 18, like literally it was like the week that I turned 18, I ended up leaving the house. And it broke my mom's heart because she didn't understand why I would want to leave so fast. And I wasn't telling her the truth of why, because if you leave that religion and you tell them why, or like you don't want to be a part of it, or you're not sure if it's for you, it's a religion that you're not supposed to, or you're not technically supposed to speak to people anymore, or you could get disfellowshipped or disassociated. And so when I left, I just moved far enough away that I was telling them I was still a part of the religion so that I wouldn't get disfellowshipped and I could still talk to my family and friends. Yeah. Except I moved and didn't end up doing anything with the religion. And I didn't have the like confidence or any of that to be able to tell them, because it's like, remember, 114 people and being cut off and isolated from everyone that you've ever known. So this is why building, you talked about the book in the beginning in my bio. It was called A Tribe Called Bliss. And it's really about building networks and friendships for where you're going, not where you're at. And it's based upon the precipice of, what if you don't have the family and the friend group who believes in you or understands it, or, is there to support or help you for where you're going. And it's really, how do you build that? Like real, true, lasting relationships, but also relationships that can help you step into your higher purpose. So that was really like the beginning of that journey.
Oh my goodness. My heart. I'm so glad that you were able to go follow your happy and to go find your purpose. I can't even imagine what that's like. I definitely, we had an hour conversation right before this, and my journey was so different. I feel like I grew up and I appreciate the love that you shared, because I do think that families can be dysfunctional and still have, like, there's still love, like, right? There's love, sure. And then there's a ton of dysfunction. And I had friends who grew up, I grew up Muslim, and I had friends that grew up very, very traditional Muslim, and I had friends that were very liberal Muslim. And religion can also play it's a hard view, because it's a belief system. Oh yeah, right. It's a belief system, and that's
a life and death belief system.
And especially for I have so much, like, I just have so much heart for what you went through. I'm so glad that you wrote the book. That's incredible. How did your professional journey? So take us now through like what happened. Is that what you came out and were like, you made the book, or what was the first company? What was that next part of your journey like?
I'd love to say it was super short, but there was like a long, there was like a long span in there. Okay. So 18, moved out, didn't really have, there was a couple other girls who kind of like quote unquote left as well, kind of left the same way as me, and we ended up moving in together. And I would say for about 2 or 3 years, it was just a giant mess of, hold a spring really tight and then just let it go. And it just, goes all over the room, breaks things and does everything wrong. So that was a good 2-3 years of like being, not being allowed to access the world or the people in it, to going to the extreme other end. And I can tell you that I am the ultimate queen of teaching you from the pendulum of one extreme end to another. But somehow I'll come up with something for you more in the middle. But that's just been my journey always. And so swung to the really far end of just like going wild and doing all the things. And that was a really, learned a lot of really hard, scary lessons throughout that. And one of the things that ended up happening was, you just find yourself in a place where all of a sudden you realize that you're doing shitty things with friends or hanging out with just awful people. And you just wake up and you're like, what? How did I get here? Because this is not me. Like, I believe your soul always knows and it's always trying to wake you up. And it's like, I remember one time, literally, whatever, we're good, we'll go here. I woke up in the bushes of a bank in downtown Milwaukee. Like, I had passed out from going out with friends. Nobody cared about, nobody cares about you. Like, you're just all on your own partying journey for that night. And I remember that morning waking up and being like, this is so, like, I know what I'm meant for. And this is like the ultimate low, one of them. And it, like, there were multiple of these. And for some reason, for me, if anybody out there, oh my gosh, if anybody out there is listening, like, I had multiple experiences like that. And, some people are like, oh, I had this one thing happen. Nope. I needed 10 to 15 of these moments to go, what are we doing? Like, what's going on? Because I didn't have, I couldn't tell my mom and dad. I didn't have the friends who were like, what are you doing? Because they were doing the exact same thing. We just were all trying to get each other out of it. And it was, I'm trying to think what the thing was. Oh, so one of the main things that ended up happening was I was living in this condo with my girlfriends, and it just got to the point where they were making keys for people. Like, I'd come home from work and there'd be so many randoms like asleep on the floor that I was like, this is not safe anymore. Because I started to notice there were like a lot of drugs in the house. And even though I was really wild, I drank, but I wasn't into drugs. And when that started coming into the house, I was like, okay, this is where I draw the line. I pictured like SWAT teams coming through my windows. And I was like, oh my God, I can't. And so I had called my dad and I was like, hey, don't tell mom, but like, I've gotten into like some stuff down here. This is where I'm at. Because my dad had always been a little more lenient, but like wouldn't really say anything. And so I ended up telling him, I need to come home. Like, don't really ask. I just need to come home. Can I work with you? And just kind of get myself out of this condo, back on my feet, and, get back to life. And he was like, yes, come home. You can stay in your brother's room. My brother at the time, he's 14 years younger than me. So he was like 4 years old or something. And he's like, you can stay in your brother's room. I ended up moving back. I'm still paying rent on that place because I have 3 months left. I just need to like be done with this. Yeah. And so I'm working with my dad. I'm sleeping in my 4-year-old brother's bedroom with dinosaurs on the headboard and glow in the dark stars. And I was like, what? How did I get back here? Because now my mom was like, well, you're back in the house. You have to like abide by the rules. Still wasn't telling her anything that had happened. So she wants me like back in the religion. I'm kind of saying like, I'm not really going to go, all the things. So all of that is starting to bubble up. And I end up during this time going to the gym, because that had always been like my saving like grace. Like, all right, even if your life is total chaos, like, let's just get back into a healthy routine. Because when I'm in a healthy routine, I feel like I hear that voice. Like, I always knew I was connected. I knew it was God. Like, even during the whole religious thing where I was like, is there even a God? Like, what is going on? Who is it? Like, I always knew that it was, but that it didn't have to look a certain way. But I didn't know how to like tell that to people. And I didn't actually know if I really believed that. Like, everything was shaky back then. And so I ended up going to the gym, and at the gym one day I end up meeting this guy who I was so not interested in. And he came up and introduced him to me, who would turn out to be my husband in the future.
Oh, I love that.
But it's funny because it was a very small town. And so if any new girls come, people were very excited. Mind you, I was not special. I did not look any kind of
So
way.
your husband was from the same town.
Well, the one that I moved back to.
The one you moved back to. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So I will say I was in the really small town in Upper Michigan. When I was 16, my parents lost their business and ended up moving to Green Bay, Wisconsin. So I only lived there for a very brief period, moved out. And so when I came back, it wasn't even my family home. It was like this home I didn't ever even live in because they had moved again. So I had never actually lived in this town. So moved in with them, met my husband at this gym, brand new town for me, had never lived in, brand new gym. And he was the third person that day to hit on me. Again, I was not special. I was just fresh blood within a very small town.
You were special.
So this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, are you new here?" And that was it. That was like the third person. And I was like, "Yep." And I just kind of waved and got in the car and I was like, "Good Lord, this is supposed to be my safe place. Like I'm supposed to like get back to myself and all the things." And so I ended up seeing him for like 3 more months, and he's super sweet. He's just like totally chill. He's leaving me alone. And we at the water fountain, I was like, "Hey, so sorry about that day. Like I was having a rough day. What's your name?" And we end up talking, hanging out, friend zone him for a while, for about 6 months. But we get together. Now, this is huge because my husband and I are both really big dreamers. And it was the first time I found somebody who I told kind of like everything to about how I felt about the religion, because even that had a lot of shame around it.
Was he part of the religion?
No.
Okay.
No. And so I hid him from mom and dad as well for a long time. Yeah. Like really leading this entire double life, which also I think a lot of people do because they hide a lot of even if it's just their dreams, right? They hide a lot of that part of themselves. We hide whatever part of ourselves we don't believe will be accepted.
Yes, that's true for life always. Like that's
always.
True. And it's such a hard thing for us to let go. And I do feel like I was sharing earlier on I was doing a fireside chat this morning as well for a company, and there's a lot of women that were corporate women in the audience, and they were asking me, what my journey was like as a woman in corporate. And I was like, I felt like I was a man in a skirt. Like I was like hiding this, I had to be in the masculine in financial services.
Totally.
And so I felt like I was even leaving behind like parts my entire femininity. I felt like I was just trying to fit into the boys club. And that's just one aspect of things I just wanted to share that. It just resonated I think in our lives, we do have to check ourselves of like what we are hiding. And we're usually hiding from the things that we believe just won't be accepted.
Totally. And the thing is though, when you hide them, like, especially if it's a dream or if it's a big part of who you are, it blocks a lot of the blessings that are waiting for you. It blocks a lot of the opportunities. It blocks a lot of your joy, your fulfillment, and your happiness. So, that became a really big part of also like, how do we kind of allow ourselves to have these different places where each different aspect of ourself, even if it's not all the same group, can come out so that we can be the whole version of us? Because it's when we start living that life that you're just like, oh, you're only this part, but you have to hide this part or you can't be that you just, it doesn't work. It like clogs the pipes. It clogs a spiritual pipe somewhere. It clogs an emotional pipe somewhere, and it will break down. Like you will have a breakdown around it of some sort. And it'll show up in the craziest things. It'll show up in your relationship. It'll show up in your health. It'll show up in your bank account. So meet the husband. I think that was the first time that it was like, oh, okay, I've got this human and we believe in each other. And so in the beginning, him and I got married, and it was all about his job because he was the breadwinner. Like, girlfriend did not graduate high school, so I was not going to be winning any bread at that time. But I was a hard worker. I mean, like, I started working with my dad, like he would make us go sweep his shop at 8 years old.
Yeah,
so
I relate to the hard work at a young age, but you were knocking on doors, right? Like you had a job. Like that's
had
hard.
That job, then my first, barista job at 16, like I worked because I had to, like my parents were poor, but I didn't know that. Like to me, it wasn't, I knew we struggled, but that was just how it was in Upper Michigan. Everybody struggled. Like my best friends and my grandma were in, like they were in a trailer court. Like that was so normal for me. It was just, that didn't, and my grandma had such a nice trailer. I was like, grandma's got the nicest trailer. And so for me, I didn't know what that was. And so, you know, with my husband earning the income, and he had a really great job. He was in the financial industry, and he was young, and he was moving up the ladder really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, and we had to move around a lot for his job. Like once a year, we were moving, sometimes twice a year. And so for me, it was like, oh, I'm going to fully support him when we move. I'll set up the house. I'll do all the things. Then I go and find a job. You know, it was usually like a retail job. Like I did makeup at Ulta. I did, you know, front desk of a salon. But when I did those jobs, I did them so well. Like I would stay and like clean break rooms and closets and organize things. And like I was that girl because my dad was always like, if you do it 100%. Like everything that you do, like you leave everywhere better. And because we would do kitchens and bathrooms together, like I actually install countertops, bathrooms, all the things. And so he was neurotic. He's like, if this house will look better right now in the, like when we leave it than in the beginning. Like if it's really clean, it'll be even cleaner. And so
I love that. I relate to that so much. When I used to go to, you know, my dad's convenience store, he'd hand me, and I'm probably 8. And at the time you had like the price gun, like you had the sticker guns.
Totally.
Like you didn't have point of sale systems and whatever else. And so at the convenience store you had like canned foods. And so that was like my favorite job when I got to do that job. Because you just like put the sticker on and it's like 69 cents or whatever it was. And then you just like slap the stickers on all the way through. And so I was doing this like organizing of the cans and putting the stickers on. And I loved it. And I'm really excited. And my dad comes over and he's upset, and he's like, well, this isn't done right and we have to redo it. And he made me take out every sticker, every can, and it was because, and he goes, if we're going to do it, you're going to do it right. And what I was doing, I was just power slapping it all the way through. The cans weren't lined up and the sticker was not in the same spot at every single one. And so when the customers come through, they should be able to see the can, like you to put the sticker on top. This is where it's supposed to go.
Yes.
It's supposed to face a certain way. The cans should be lined. You're mixing the tomatoes with the corn or whatever it was. And I just remember that very specific memory at the store. And it really, like, I love that that's you have that relationship with your father even through all the things, because I think those are really important lessons of hard work and doing it right, doing it with excellence. That is something that is part of my DNA. There's nothing that I will touch that if it has my name on it, that is not done right. Like that is super, super important.
that is, I think, one of the most important things you can ever do as a human being, like ever. It, you know, there's kind of a conversation out there around like, oh, well, you know, people need to pay you more for X, Y, and Z at your job. Like if you put these different things out online, like I just feel like people attack it right now. And I'm like, what happened to wanting to go above and beyond to make yourself proud?
Oh
and
my
to
God.
do it.
Thank you.
Like it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do that, and if you're going to be that way in someone else, like how you are in someone else's business is how you're going to be in your own. So if you're just doing enough to get it done, that's all you're ever going to do in your own business. It's just the truth. Like, because that is a way of being. It's a mindset. And if you're only doing enough to get by, I promise you, you'll never even start a business, because that's not the mentality or the energy that it will ever take to get it off the ground. Maybe you'll have it for a week, but it won't be long because it's going to take a lot more than that to do it.
So when did the first business happen?
Yes. Okay. So 2008 happened, which was the recession, and my husband was in finance.
Yeah.
So if you guys don't know what happened during that time is that whole, you know, he's in mortgage and finance. Yeah. So that whole industry just went away.
The economy tanked. Yeah.
The economy tanked. That industry disappeared. There wasn't like another job for him to go to because it was gone for a hot second. And so, you know, we were doing really well back in the Midwest. Like he was doing very well. We had just bought like our third new house because we were moving in all these different places. And as we moved, the homes got, you know, his compensation package got bigger, and then the homes got bigger. And I remember we were living in like this 6-bedroom house, and it's just the two of us, you know, with no plans of children at the time. And it was like, you're young. And when you get the money, we were just spending it. Right. And so 2008 hits, and we end up losing everything because he loses his job. We were living way beyond our means, and we are now have lost our home, lost our cars, and we're $300,000 in debt. And I remember when he told me, there was a part of me that knew I wasn't taking like responsibility for where we were. It's almost like you're like, wow, this is great. And are we kind of like spending a lot? Like, but I wasn't, I just kind of played this like, oh, well, I didn't graduate high school. I don't really understand the numbers. Like, I'm going to leave that for you or whatever. So there was a part of me that was, I was not upset by any means. It was like, oh, I'm responsible for this as well. Like, I know that I was not acknowledging what we were doing. And you just think that will always be there. He always thought like, oh, well, I just keep going up. We'll just do this and it'll all compensate and we'll figure it out. And so when we had lost everything, there are big moments within there where I remember we had just filled the house with like brand new furniture, and we ended up selling it on Craigslist, and all these people would walk through our door and leave with like these picture your favorite pieces of furniture right now and all that you spent on it, and someone giving you like 2% of what you spent on it, like a month later. Yeah. And so there was such a pride piece of that. And I remember one of our neighbors walked in, and we were the youngest kids on the block because we were, making in the Midwest, to be making the money that we were making. People were like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. It's very normal now. But so one of our neighbors came in, he was this older man. And when we short sold the house, he came in, like just walked through the front door because the whole Craigslist thing was going on. And he's like, what are you guys doing? And my husband kind of said, what had gone on, and he's like, oh my God, you're ruining our house values. How could you do this? Like he was literally yelling at him, in the middle of all of this happening with people coming in and out for Craigslist. And so that was such a cellular moment for both of us of this will never, ever happen again. Yeah. And for me, because I had so much shame around not graduating, that I was like, well, how am I ever going to make money? Like I can't. And it's not that I didn't go back and try. I literally went back and tried to get my GED twice, but I failed math both times. Like I could not. So in my head, I had the story of, I'm not smart enough. I'm not smart enough. And so I think that moment was the moment that it was, I have to do something about this. I don't care what it is. I will never let us be in this position again. And that's actually exactly what I said when it happened. I looked at him and I said, this will never happen to us again, ever, like ever. And so, that was the moment that I decided, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get my personal trainer certificate. I'm going to go figure something out. Like, I don't know what this is going to look like. So I started doing personal training, which wasn't solving our problems because it was $6 per 30-minute session at an LA Fitness. But my roster was full in like a week, and you had to sell your own sales. Mm-hmm. So I was full. I was training back to back to back. And I remember like doing some of the math. And I was like, okay, so we're not going to be out of debt till I'm like 80 because we have to like pay for our life too. And there's no way I'm going to be able to save. And, I don't know what he's doing with his job. I wanted to give him a minute because he had completely lost his identity. So I wasn't like, you got to go out there and do something, which he actually was doing things right away. But I was training, and I remember I had heard something that someone had said, like, I think I was starting to listen to podcasts at this time. I remember they said you have to tell your dream to like everybody that you come in contact with.
That's great advice.
Such great advice.
Such good advice.
And so I would always speak it out loud, and I would say, hey, I really want to own my own, studio. I want to be like on magazine covers. Like I'd always say that. I'm like, I know it's like a big dream, but this is the goal. And so it wasn't too long later, I was training this woman, and she wasn't that much older than me. I think she was like 28 at the time. And she was opening her own chiropractic studio. And again, in the Midwest, this was like a big deal. I was like, a woman opening a chiropractic studio who's only 28. Like anyone who had businesses was old, and it was usually men at the time. So much has changed in the last like 15 years. So I was like, this girl is amazing. Yeah. And loved working with her. She loved training with me. Her name was Angela. And she's like, hey, I know that you always talk about, you want your own like training gym or your own training studio. I'm moving in to this studio. It's got a whole lower level to it that's not built out, but if you want, it's just a raw basement. Like it's the studs, it's the insulation, it's the lighting. She goes, but if you don't care, like you can train people down there, and we can do it for trade. You can train me for a while until you get on your feet, and then you can start paying me rent. We'll reassess in like 3 months. I was in her studio in 2 weeks.
Oh my goodness. I love Angela.
We love Angela so much. I was in her studio
What
in
a
2 weeks.
strong, like, what an incredible, that's like when you need, this is where women can come in.
She changed my entire life. And, I trained people in that studio with the raw
Thank you,
basement,
Angela.
insulation, wires. Like I went to Walmart and got like the little, for kids on the floor, like those square things those puzzle foam pieces. That was on the floor. I bought a Bosu ball. I bought the rubber bands because it's like all I could afford. And I bought 3 back of the door or closet mirrors, that you just stick on like the insulation and the studs. And that's how I trained for a year. And I remember this woman had pulled up, we either got her on Craigslist or something like that. And I remember she pulled up in a Range Rover. I didn't know what a Range Rover was, but I knew it was an expensive car. And I was like, oh God, shit. Like I'm about to take her down to this basement that I like didn't tell her about at all. Or just like this fancy ad that I put in with a lot of fancy words that were not true.
The imposter was showing up.
Yes, the imposter was showing up. And I brought her downstairs and I'm like, don't mind, I'm just remodeling. And I had no intention of remodeling and $0 in the bank. But she stuck with me for like 4 more years after that. So a year later, I was in my own gym. But one of the key stories throughout this as well is while I was training, it was about probably 7 or 8 months into training in that basement. My husband had a friend that he worked with at the bank that he worked at, and she had always been about 100 pounds overweight and wanted to lose this weight like once and for all. And she was like, would you train me? I want to train 3 times a week. I entered this contest. I'm a part of this company. Like I'm doing this network marketing stuff and I'm going to lose. I'm going to win. She's like, I'm going to win this contest. It's huge. I win all of this money. And I also build a business in the process. I'm like, let's do it. I heard a goal because at the time I was like doing fitness competitions too. And I was like, she's got a huge goal. That's it. Like I went all in. Like we even walked every single day, like did not charge her. It was great. It was great for me.
You were above and beyond.
Built a great friendship. Yeah. So 6 months in, she has lost about 90 pounds, 6 months in. Looks insane. And the whole time she's telling me about these shakes and she wants me to try this company, except my parents had done some network marketing growing up and I was so turned off by it. And in the fitness industry, it was looked upon so negatively at the time. Like it was so frowned upon and all the girls were trying to get contracts with supplement companies. And so I was like, I'm not going to ruin my career because I want to be in these magazines and I want to be a fitness celebrity. So network marketing will ruin my career. And so I told her that. I'm like, I can't do it. It literally, my coach literally said she would completely like not work with me anymore if I did network marketing. That's how faux pas it was for a while. And so one week she brings in it. She knows that we're kind of just like struggling and, rebuilding our life and what we had gone through because she went through it too. That's why she's a part of network marketing. She lost everything too. She worked with my husband. Yeah. And so she brings in her check. And she shows me this check and I'm like thinking it's like for a month. And I'm like, oh my God, this check is enormous. Like what are you doing? She goes, Lori, that's 1 week. And it was, I remember it was $13,000 for 1 week. This was back in, 2009. And I was like, what are you doing? Show me what you're doing.
I'm in.
Teach me everything that you know. I'm in. Like, that was the point where when your back is so against the wall, you're willing to do anything. And in a little over 1 year, we went from 0 to over $1 million in network marketing. And we've gone on to make like $18 million in network marketing in not too crazy of a span of time. Wow. We just took it and ran with it. Like I saw the path and that was it.
And that was the
beginning.
That was the beginning. And that was really what catapulted your career. And you got out of the debt, out of the things. And your husband's back in finance, in fintech.
So we really started, so it went, fitness. I think we got so excited about learning about business too, because every time what would happen in fitness or in network marketing is people wanted more. Like even if it was network marketing, which is the most beautiful place on planet Earth to learn like business 101. It is like, because you don't have to do your own back end, but it is a lot of the relationships and it's sales as well. So what was happening is we had so many people who wanted to learn about, building their own business, who wanted events, who wanted courses. And we had kind of like started doing all of that within like 5 years.
What time frame is this?
This is like 2009, 2010.
Okay. And
we had taken so I built a successful gym for about 3 years. And it was a one-on-one personal training studio, but I also had like some other personal trainers in there and also group fitness on the weekends. And I also did like coaching for people who wanted to do fitness competitions, like stage coaching and different things like that. And then because I couldn't reach as many people as I wanted, I grew an online membership to about 2,500 women. So I was one of the first online fitness programs. And I had that for 9 years. And I ended up.
Instagram didn't even start. I feel like the first, I remember going.
Oh, we were
Instagram.
Facebook. We were growing it on Facebook ads. We did challenges 4 times a year. We would have we would pay for Facebook ads as well, and we would have about 35 to 40,000 people on each challenge, and then convert them into a membership. So we really learned that.
You were like one of the originals in like in the digital digital space and in the fitness space. That's incredible.
Like it was like me, Kathy Savage, Tone It Up, and I can't really think of anybody else. Like because we were doing this all based off of a Brendan Burchard book and Jeff Walker launch book. Like I wasn't doing it off of watching someone else's stuff. I was doing it
it wasn't accessible.
Off of like real estate stuff and personal development launches. And we said if it works for them, why wouldn't it work for fitness? So we took it and applied it to our stuff. And so from the fitness, I really started to realize, okay, women, as soon as you crack them open and they start getting their goals in fitness and they start eating right and moving, they're like, oh my God, what else can I do? Oh, I feel like I want to do this other thing. Oh, I really want to be able to make my own money. And it was the realization that if women could also learn how to make money, a lot of them would walk out of the situations they were in. Mm-hmm. And that is what got me so fired up about learning how to help make women money. And so we got into personal development courses and then like business courses and masterminds that many years ago. That's really where it all started.
And that was a journey. Mm-hmm. And now from there, like this, pivot a little bit into, what you do today and into the company that you're running today. I would love for the audience to hear about. One of the things that I feel like I connected with you online that I would always watch is your events. Like they just look like I want to be there. I want to be at the dinner table. I think there's one that's called like the dinner club or
the dinner series.
The dinner series. And like, I want to be there. I want to hang out. Where has everything all transitioned and what's up ahead now with Glossy?
So my main things now are Glossy, which is a daily beauty supplement. It's skin and gut. It's essentially, think of like a hydration stick, but I looked at my hydration sticks and said, why don't you do more for me and more that I want? Like I wanted to feel less bloated and I wanted to have glowing skin all the time. And, my life was getting busier and I felt like my supplements like weren't keeping up with that. Like there was just too much. I was so overwhelmed and I was like, if I could only do one thing a day, what would it be? And so we created essentially a bit like a one stick wonder that would do all the things that I wanted it to do for my skin, for my gut, for bloat, and also have incredible vitamins for both of those things. Yeah. So really, really excited about that. That's what we're doing right now. It's the first time I've had a physical product on my own, even though I have sold supplements for 15 years. It is now my own. So there was some skill sets that thankfully we're able to transfer into that. But the biggest things for me right now are I am launching my own mastermind. I've done one with my husband multiple times. We've done a lot of events, but I'm really getting clear that this next year I want it to be Glossy, a mastermind for women from 100K to 599K, because I really feel like that's where we can move the needle really big and really fast for people. And then the podcast.
And when did the podcast? I mean, the podcast has been such a tremendous success. You've interviewed the most incredible guests. You've been doing that for 8 years as well. You're a consistent machine. I would say, I do have some questions for you. Like, what would you say have been like the biggest needle moving things for your business that catapulted it from that? What were like the top 3 things that you can say that really changed the game? Whether it was the mindset, whether it was people, whether it was process, what were the things that really catapulted each of the different scales?
Well, for me, because I had no formal education, did not graduate from high school, I needed to go into the rooms with the people who had done it to hear how it was really done. Because there was a stigma for a while, like, oh, if you're not educated, you'll never be able to do anything. I'm sure you remember that growing up. And so for me, now there's this whole other conversation, like you can fast track into your career of like really just getting in the room and focusing in on the exact thing that you want to do. And like, okay, show me how to do this one thing. I don't need to know all of the curriculum of everything in the world. Like, just show me this one thing. Like, this is what I want to focus on. And so for me, I have joined masterminds every single year for, if not, 2 to 3 of them a year.
Wow.
For the over 10 years.
Wow.
It's been, and that's why we have them, is because it's like, if you are stuck or you don't have the answer, or you don't have the network, you literally get it. Like,
Yeah.
you get all of those things if you're willing to play full out and you understand how they work. Because if people go into
So
them,
how
and
does
they're-
it work? So for those that haven't been part of a mastermind, I've only ever done one. I've hosted, but I'd love to hear, but I'm not in that space. And so I'd love to hear, you said 2 things. You said you got to know how to make it work. You've got to be fully, you said, you repeat that again. I want to know, what does it take to make it work? How do these masterminds work?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Well, you kind of have to, you have to vet them, because you have to know you're joining the right one for you.
Okay.
Because some people will join something and they'll be like, oh, it was horrible. I'm like, was it horrible or was it horrible for you? Some are horrible, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But if they're joining, if they're joining something that is more for, maybe they see some really shiny people getting paraded across stage, which great, that does work. There's a part of that where, being in a room with proximity and being able to show your audience that does boost essentially what people's perception of you. That's a real thing.
Yeah. It's called likeness.
Yes, totally. But if you think you're going to go there and get the strategies from them when they've already exited or they're so far ahead, they're not there to give you the beginning strategies of things. So you have to know where you're at and what you need at that point. Like, do you need like basic beginning strategies of launching an online business, but you just joined something that's a product bit, like more of a product mastermind? So you have to kind of ask around and like, who are the people joining? What are the goals? What's the income levels that are in there? Like, has the person leading it done the thing that you want to do? Or are they just a really good facilitator, which can sometimes work too, but I really want to be in a room with the person who's
done the thing,
whose like actual goal, or my goal is their reality, and they've done it multiple times. So I'll give you an example. One of my very first masterminds, it was a mastermind, but it was called Train the Trainer at the time. And it was Jack Canfield, like one of the old school, like, first guys in personal development and events. And my goal with that was I wanted to learn how to facilitate and run events. I really felt called towards events because events had changed my life. Like, I was a big Tony Robbins person. I went to Landmark. I did there was a lot of personal development attached with my network marketing company, like actual side events that they would do for personal development. And so because I had something I did not share on this podcast, but had so much anxiety and panic attacks, but my dream was to be front facing, but every time I'd even speak to a small group of 5 people, I'd get like a panic attack. So I wanted to go and learn how to facilitate and kind of like manage my energy, and how would I be able to do this in public speak. And so Jack Canfield had something called Train the Trainer. It was 3 weeks broken into 1 week at a time throughout the year. So, one at the beginning, one in the middle, and one at the end. And he was going to, at the end, the promise was kind of like, you're going to know how to run an event, a mastermind, break people out, do coaching, like all of these different things. And so the mastermind truly broke down exactly from soup to nuts, from start to finish, like how to have a small event, how to have a large event, the exercises that you can put people through.
Yeah, where was that for me?
It was the most amazing thing that you then had to graduate from. So then at the week 3, you were facilitating them in front of your peers. So that was so powerful because that year I had my first big event. It had 300 women from all over the world. That went on to grow for 9 years. Had 500 women plus every single year.
That's amazing.
Because of that, because I had the confidence, the tools, the exercises, I knew everything that was going to happen. Of course I was still super freaked out, but I would have never known how to do exactly that thing. And so, then some of the next masterminds we joined were Lewis Howes mastermind. We joined 3 years in a row. I remember we spent a lot of money on that too. I think it was $50K.
Wow.
And I had joined another one too.
I have a question right there, because I've invested in so many. What does it take to invest $50,000? What was that mindset like, to be what was your income level? What percentage of that was was it okay? Or oh, I can do that. Was it? That
one was okay, but the Jack Canfield one was $25,000 and I was not okay.
Yeah.
That was I knew I had to do it. And also,
how do you determine what's okay?
Well, there's a couple different ways. I mean, you can do it the logical way of, these numbers, like this is what I can sort of afford and it should stretch you, because if you can afford it and you don't feel it, guess what? You're not going to show up to week 3. You won't. You'll be like, that was hard. I'm miserable when I'm there, because guess what? You are.
Yeah.
Like, you're not always having fun, especially if
Yeah.
you're being stretched. And I'm a total introvert, so I kind of have a 50-50 actual love despise relationship with these events. But I know the transformation. So you can do the logical thing of like, hey, can I actually afford this? Is this risky? All of those things. Or you can also go, if I put this money on the line, is this so much money that I actually have to make this happen? And that's what happened with the Jack Canfield 25K. I was like, oh my God, we're putting this on our credit cards. I've got to make this work. Like, I energetically showed up so different, knowing that I had to meet the people. I had to do the things. I had to become the person, because we weren't playing. You know what I mean? And so if I would have spent any less, I did that by myself, like did not know anyone. Everyone was way older than me except for like 2 people. Like, would I even have got, like I would have stopped at week 1. It was so uncomfortable. It was like 6 a.m. to like 11 at night of everything was uncomfortable. I mean, imagine being a super shy person and like exercise to day 2 is like you have to pretend.
I would never know that you were an introvert or a shy person.
I've just forced
after spending
myself
half a day with you now.
Oh my gosh. I mean, this is years and years of like learning how to like be this way.
Yeah.
I think it was like day 2, second exercise. We had to go up and pretend to be like a chainsaw to somebody. Like, we had to like giggle, laugh, chainsaw, introduce ourselves. It was the weirdest, like pretend you're pulling a chainsaw, laughing and being like, like full out. He wanted us to get so uncomfortable. And I had to do this. One of my partners was Jack Canfield. Hadn't even met him yet. And I had to go be a chainsaw to this man. Like, picture doing that in a room of 70 people.
Wow.
Like, I don't know how to be a chainsaw.
Yeah, uncomfortable, right? That's where growth
It was
happens.
so weird. Anyway.
That's awesome.
But I think masterminds are the biggest, fastest way to grow. If you vet them and if you show up in them from the perspective, I'm going to give as much as I take. I think that's really, really important. I'm going to give as much as I can take, and also know that when you walk into a room like that, it's a fire hose of information. If you just take 1 to 3 things and integrate, you've won.
Yes.
And in a year, it's a lot of times you won't see your ROI that year, but a lot of times you can. If you can integrate and know that you became a different person just from being in that room with those people, like, you're going to see something really big happen in 2 to 3 years. And like you had said on my podcast, so in that room, in that mastermind, I just have to tell you who was in there. None of us were like really anybody's at the time. We had all kind of just started our thing. I met Jenna Kutcher, who was just deciding to start. She was brand new, like brand new. I didn't know who she was. She was like, I'm a wedding photographer. Here's what I want to do. Jenna Kutcher was in that with me. Jasmine Starr was in that with me. Had no idea who she was. Catherine Zankina of Manifestation Babe.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there were so many people who just like literally popped off years later. And so I believe so much of it started from his mastermind, because he was showing us what was possible with his podcast and getting people together.
I think it's so cool. I wish I had invested more time into doing the things I had shared with you that
you were busy building a $1 billion company. So bring that info back to us.
I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to bring it back. And you know what? I was, for me, I kind of had that experience was really great that I got to be in that room during COVID with, I had shared with Lori that my first mastermind I was with Sophia Moroso, was with Amy Porterfield, was
pretty
Jasmine
good start.
Starr. It was a really great start. And I was bringing the tech, I would say, perspective to it. I was excited to learn because my personal brand was taking off, and I had started the podcast and I wanted to really understand the online space. Felt very just foreign, and that's where we were, and it was such a great experience for so many different reasons. I would do it, and we only met like once every 6 weeks on Zoom. It was during COVID, so we actually never ended up meeting in person. But the friendships were super, just everybody showed up to really support each other, also get down to business. So it was like straight get to business, but I made so many great decisions because of that. I learned so much because of that. I felt like it was also one of those rooms that I had shared with you that I was in a lot of femme rooms, a lot of feminine rooms, a lot of different kind of energy. I was in that masculine energy all the time. And it was a safe space that I could just let my hair down and share what was happening.
It probably felt so good to you.
It felt so good. And I was like exposed to this other world, and I was exposed to seeing, you know, I think what inspired me most was that's why this podcast has like carried on for 4 years, was that I definitely had bigger visions. I was focused on completing through my journey at Stacks, but I never did the conference, by the way. I've invited this audience out for a conference every year, or I've tried to, and then I'm like, no, I'm not ready yet. Because I love to get people in the room. Like, that is what I love. Quality time is my love language. I want to be with everyone. I want to get off of the screen into the room. I've shared that with you on your show, and I never have pulled the trigger because I also feel like there's expectation, right? On like, but you have to get started somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I've never brought everyone together. The closest things that I've done so I started to do retreats for CEO School in 2020, which are right at the end of 2020. And it was only 20 people in the room, and it was so wonderful. So it was like a small mastermind in and of itself, every retreat. And I felt like what was missing was that everybody wanted to continue that conversation post a retreat. And some of the masterminds, and I've gone through, and I hosted a mastermind for about 25 women one year, but I felt like I gave so much energy to those women. Like, it was and I loved that. I loved supporting their businesses, but I did feel like it was a lot on me as one person. And it was super great in many ways. And they're still like my closest friends and companies that I still like invested in, adore, like became so close with. But I felt like something that was missing was this hybrid where I wanted the network. I wanted to get in the room, but I didn't want it to stop after one retreat or one event. Yeah. And so this last year, I started Millionaire Founders Club because I'm part of all of the boys groups, YPOs, EOs, and they don't end. Like, you're part of your forum, you're part of the thing, you continue on and you build your network, and it's not one and done. It's really about those relationships and cultivating those relationships. And I did, where I was looking for my peer group. And so I was like, I'm going to get 50 women together, which is a pretty large number for a group. So now that was my goal for earlier this year. I'm gonna get 50 women together as like part of the founding 50. We're all gonna be peers. So I'm not coaching. So I'm not in here. Of course, I'm part of the thing. We're all sharing knowledge from each other, but it's a peer group that comes together, and the commitment is we get together twice a year. But we continue on, and then we invite people that only we can, initiate or invite into the room, and we're gonna cap it at 100 for the fall event. We've got about 20 women. We've got 20 spots left for it, but we're being like very, very vetted. But the goal is that this group continues on, and we meet next year, and we meet the year after. And so that's the Millionaire Founders Club. And it's really about growing the network. And so exactly what you said, you've got to be into the right rooms of the right goals. And when people come in or people will apply, or I'll have conversations, I'm like, this isn't a mastermind, because I'm not in here. I'm not coaching you weekly, or I'm not doing anything. I'm going to bring us together. We're going to have the most power-packed 3 days. We're going to be inspired. We're going to leave with action. We're going to leave with meaningful friendships. You're going to leave with your forum. You're going to leave with a group that you can then continue to hot seat with and do the things. And it's a commitment. So you've got to be in to give it. And so that's my vision for what, but it's also in line with how you give and receive love. And so like your group might be different because that's how you give and receive, like how you do it. And you can do multiple things. And I wish there was more of this, because then our networks can continue to grow. And so I've learned about the space. It's just been short in a couple of years. When we sat down, you were telling me about all the things, and I was like, I want to be part of a group. And you asked me, you're like, what kind of mastermind? And I said, I don't need anything. I just want friendship. Like that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for.
So you want a friend group?
Yes, but an awesome business bestie friend group. Right?
Totally.
Those are like there's different circles for everything.
For sure.
Lori, this has been such an incredible conversation. I feel like we've just had the mic on for hours now at this point with each other. Congratulations on your success, your story. It's so inspiring. I feel very just inspired by young Lori today, and just how far she's come. What advice, what would be the advice that you would give her when you like look back at young Lori? Like, what do you want to say to her?
I mean, I really wish I could go back and tell her like, just like, it's all gonna work out. Like enjoy it more. It's all gonna work out. Like you fit, like you fit in, you'll find your people. Because I just never felt like I fit, and that's okay. Like it's okay to not fit.
I love that. I love her. I love you. Thanks so much for being here. How can we support you? You have your mastermind coming up. I'm going to be linking that in the show notes. We're going to learn from you there. How else can we support you? I'm going to link the podcast. What do you need?
The biggest thing is Glossy right now, because if you are listening to this and you're an entrepreneur and you feel like your rituals have slacked a bit and you're not, you're literally like, wow, I haven't drank water yet today. And I know this is really real. Like you have experienced this where you're like,
I drink coffee until 11
just
some days.
Go drink some water, take a minute for yourself. It really is a routine and a ritual where we put a clinically studied probiotic in it. We put hyaluronic acid, magnesium. We put vitamin C, prickly pear, coconut water, zinc. Like it's all of the things that can just kind of help support you, bring you back to life, make your skin amazing, help with bloating, help with your gut. I know when I traveled and I would start getting really busy, it's like you'd miss those little things and you'd start to feel bloated or irritable. So it really is a little bit of support. So we wanted to create it. Natalie Ellis is my co-founder of Boss Babe, and truly it's about supporting women and supporting ambitious women. It's these little health rituals that can remind you, like, take a minute to pour into yourself. And that's really what the company is about.
It's what you're doing. You're pouring into yourself. So we're going to definitely check out Glossy. I had it earlier today. It's delicious. It's so light and refreshing, and it's important. I put in a million different packets that have electrolytes and this, but what's actually in it, I don't know. I just assume that it's good for me. But I appreciate you sharing your story. We're going to be linking everything, and I cannot wait to see you at one of your events.
I can't wait. Yeah. This was so much fun.
So fun.
Thank you so much.
We'll tune in next time. If you enjoyed today's episode, give us some love, give Lori some love, show up on social, leave a review for the podcast, share this podcast, tag us both. I'll be linking, we can find Lori online. You can find me online. We'd love to hear your takeaways, what questions you have for Lori. I'll be taking them back to her as well. So show your energy online. Until next week at CEO School. Bye, everyone.